It's time to talk outfield tiers. Up next on a Kokomo Friday.
Alcantara, Soroka, you look so good in Boca. Peralta, Manoa, bounce back for Aaron Nola. Giolito, Castillo, Yoshida, Monsuno.
Carlo and Fado, value so high, but ADP so low. Frank Clubs hit some kind of joke. Now let's get on with the show.
Happy Kokomo Friday and welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on January 23rd. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White and Chris Towers. Today on the show, we are talking outfield tiers, unless we get a Mets trade. I mean, it would be the third night in a row. I don't think anything has happened yet, but because I just said that, I'm sure something crazy will come down. But not yet, as of now. We did get another.
Actually,
whoa! Don't do that. Mackenzie Gore was traded over to the Texas Rangers. Chris and I did an emergency podcast for that, so be sure to check it out if you are interested in hearing our thoughts on Mackenzie Gore. But with that, a lot of outfielders to talk about, a lot of tiers to talk about. So let's
should be a short podcast.
Right in, and we will mention utility-only players along the way. Scott doesn't do just tiers for util-only players. There's like 10 of them, so that doesn't make sense. So we'll just mention them along the way here. The first rounders tier.
Not all of them are here, I should point out. I include the DH only players, or util only, as you say. I include them at the position where they'd be most likely to gain eligibility, however unlikely that is. So Bryce Eldridge, I tiered at first base. Ivan Herrera, I tiered at catcher. But the majority of the DH only guys will be in the outfield here.
I missed those names. Well, I guess we didn't do catcher tiers, but
yeah, I brought up Eldridge on the first base one.
You know what? I should have been listening. All right, let's talk first rounders. Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, who, again, it's util only. Juan Soto, Kyle Tucker, Ronald Acuna, Corbin Carroll, and Julio Rodriguez. Rodriguez, by the way, is one tier lower in head-to-head points. And I will also mention Kyle Schwarber is part of this tier, but he would be one tier lower in roto or categories. Again, Ohtani and Schwarber, they're util only. I guess there's a chance Schwarber could gain in-season outfield eligibility, but I'm pretty sure he has it on Yahoo just to start the season because it's Yahoo.
Have you looked, or are you just assuming?
No, I have not looked, but that is that's like a 99% assumption right there. Yeah. For reference here, for the points per game, Schwarber at 3.8. That's why he's in this tier in that format. Julio's at 3.4. That's why he drops down a tier. NFBC ADP in January, we have Ohtani at 1.1. Judge is at 1.9. So very, very close between those two at the top. Soto at 4.1, Carroll at 8.1, Acuna at 8.5, Julio at 10, Tucker at 18, but we know that number will go up for Tucker, obviously. Schwarber is down at 24, but most NFBC drafts are roto drafts. I think the three most polarizing in this group will be Tucker, Acuna, and Julio, and maybe they shouldn't be, but Tucker has missed 110 games over the past 2 years. I think people are worried about that, even though they've kind of been fluky injuries for him. Acuna returned from his second torn ACL last year, and he didn't run very much. He ran a bunch in the Venezuelan Winter League, whatever that's worth. And Julio, those first halves are just really, really frustrating. And I think some people just get tired of it. Doesn't really matter to me because he gets there. But Chris, do you disagree? I feel like those three are the most polarizing of this group.
I disagree that they should be polarizing. I think they're all awesome players, and I'd be thrilled to have any of them on my teams. You mentioned Ronald Acuna. 11 steals in 16 games in the Venezuelan Winter League. The Braves could just say you're not playing in the Venezuelan Winter League. I suppose it might be harder for them to say, okay, you can play, but no stolen bases. I kind of think if they didn't want him to run, he wouldn't be running. And if he's running in the Venezuelan Winter League, kind of think he's going to run in the majors. I'm not saying we're getting a 73 steal season from Ronald Acuna again, but if he's got 11 steals in 16 games in what are, I think it's unfair to say that they are exhibition games because this means a lot to the players who are from Venezuela, but he's not making $25 million a year playing in Venezuela, you know? So I think we're going to see Ronald Acuna run a lot more than he did last season. And
Well, he
if
said
you
as
can,
much.
yeah, and he
wasn't it him. And
it was like kind of
understanding-
an oblique, like he didn't say for sure, but it was like, yeah, I'm going to run.
My understanding, all that ever since coming back from this second torn ACL, it's been his decision. Like I know Alex Anthopoulos, I don't have the exact quote, but Alex Anthopoulos, coming into last year said something to the effect of, we're not going to ask Ronald Acuna to stop being Acuna. That's a big part of his game. So it was more about Acuna himself deciding to go easier on his knee. And he said this offseason, again, I don't have the exact quote, but the gist I got of it was, I'm going to stop doing that. I'm going to get back to being the aggressive base stealer I was. And now we have a little bit of evidence with his time in the Venezuelan Winter League. So that's very encouraging. And I think he was my number 6 overall player for Roto. I think there's a very clear top 5 in Roto. And I can't see anyone breaking into that. Cunha obviously has that upside, but given the risks, 6th is where I'd slot him. The highest of kind of the next cluster of first rounders. But the Kyle Tucker trade, him going to the Dodgers, he's now surpassed Acuna for me, and it shows here in the tiers as the number 6 overall player, number 3 outfielder for Roto. And I really don't get the hesitation with him. I understood a little more when he was still a free agent. We didn't know where he was going to go. I do think the venue might have made a difference for him. I think Wrigley Field, just looking at the home away splits last year, hindered Kyle Tucker.
Been a tough place to hit the last couple of years.
He has missed time with injuries the last 2 years, as you pointed out, Frank. They were both stress fractures. They weren't the kind of injuries that we expect to be recurring or nagging. And maybe his biggest mistake in both cases was just playing through them.
Well, in both instances, they were misdiagnosed, which it's bad that happened twice, but it's not likely to happen a third time.
Yeah.
He said.
And just in terms of production, is there beyond beyond that obvious top 5 at the start of drafts, is there a more consistent 5 category contributor than Tucker? And now he's with the Dodgers.
Yeah,
maybe one of the most optimal lineup spots in baseball history, because he's either going to be batting behind 3 Hall of Famers or right in the thick of them. And the run and RBI production is going to be unlike he's ever delivered before for however long he's healthy. And I can't guarantee health, but it's more likely than drafters are giving it credit for, clearly, because that's the only knock I can think of on Kyle Tucker. That, he might miss some time with injuries because he has the past 2 years. I don't think it's a compelling enough case for me to look past the upside. He now has in a better venue for his swing, and even more than that, in one of the most optimal lineup spots in baseball. So Kyle Tucker, clear number 6 overall for me now.
And then I do want to just point out with Julio Rodriguez, I know we want to move on, but there's no guarantee he gets off to a slow start every year. I know it's happened so far, but
I think it's guaranteed, Chris.
I'm old enough to remember when Adam LaRoche couldn't hit in the first half, and then he did. That's
wow. You're old.
I'm pretty old. I'm old enough to remember Adam LaRoche's son Drake.
I've never even heard
but Julio Rodriguez, he might just be great the whole season, and if that happens, we're talking about a 25-year-old with supreme athletic ability who has played at a very high level at the major league level. If we get a 40-40 season from Julio at some point, I'm not going to be shocked.
Right.
That's within the realm of possibility with his tools. He might just put it all together one year and be the number 1 player in fantasy.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the slow start thing is stupid anyway, just because
you get the numbers at the end of the year.
For the numbers from year to year are very consistent. Yeah. So, when he was just starting out, we might have we might have made two mistakes. One, thinking his second half stats would translate to the full season the following year and ranking him like second overall. We made that mistake. Two, panicking when he got off to a slow start that maybe something was wrong with him. We should know better than that now too. Yeah. So like, to me, it's silly to even make that part of the evaluation. Just rank him according to his full season stat line, and he's very likely to deliver on it. In a roto context, the distribution doesn't even matter as long as you trust through the early cold stretch to keep him in your lineup, which again, everybody should know to do by now. It's going to be fine.
And the 1 year he didn't get the numbers there at the end, he got crazy hot in July and then had a high ankle sprain that he played through for the rest of the season. So the numbers were going to be there if not for that injury.
I agree with you guys completely. But at the end of April, we are going to get emails and tweets.
I mean,
what's wrong with Julio? What's wrong with Francisco Lindor? Like,
we just did the podcast yesterday. Francisco Lindor, Francisco Lindor, 4 straight years as a top 12 player, right?
Yeah.
Every year, what's wrong with Francisco Lindor? I'm going to drop Francisco Lindor.
You do have to know yourself as a fantasy player. If you get frustrated by players getting off to slow starts. Look, there's no shortage of amazing players in the first and second round. You don't have to take Julio Rodriguez if you don't want him. The numbers more than likely are going to get there, but he's probably going to get off to a slow start. It's just that's the way it's been. The numbers bear that out. His career in the first half, he's a 260 hitter, 737 OPS, 114 WRC plus. Career in the second half, 297, 902 OPS, 154 WRC plus. Like, the numbers just back it up. That's the player that Julio Rodriguez has been. Last thing I'll mention here, the steals with Juan Soto, we just have no clue. And anyone who tells you they do have a clue, they don't. It's just nobody knows. He had 38 last season. His previous career high was 12. The Mets lost their first base coach, Antoine Richardson, who went to the Braves. So maybe that's a good thing for Atlanta Braves running this season. But that coach was very instrumental in Soto last season. I would probably expect 15 to 20, but he could steal 10. He could steal 30 again. Nobody really knows. Just we'll throw that out.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'm more bullish, more optimistic about him carrying over as a base stealer, continuing as a base stealer, maybe than I was at the end of the regular season when he was doing it, because those reports about his work with Antoine Richardson came out. And I always like when there's an explanation, and particularly that compelling of an explanation for a considerable change of production like that. Is it possible he'll revert to his own ways without Richardson there? Yeah, it's possible, but like, it's not like he's going to unlearn what he's learned, So I think there's a good chance he sustains 80% of what he did in 2025 as a base stealer. And if he doesn't, it's not going to kill you to take him as high as 4th overall.
Yeah.
Especially not in points leagues.
Yeah, you're only going to get 40 homers and 100 RBI and 110 runs from Juan Soto.
Such an incredibly high score.
Like, I will admit, I have Ronald Acuna ahead of Juan Soto, but that's just me kind of planting a flag on Ronald Acuna. But there's nothing wrong with being the number 6 player in fantasy.
That quote, by the way, for Acuna talking about steals, he won the 2025 Comeback Player of the Year in the National League, and I believe it was Greg Amsinger who was interviewing him and said, you're going to get back to running next year. And Acuna said, quote, "You know me." And he started smiling. So sounds like he's going to run. That's what he did in the.
I think there had to be something else, because that sounds like too much being made of too little, if that's all there is.
I mean, he said that, and then he stole a bunch in the Winter League. So maybe it matters. Let's take our first break. Before we do that, make sure to subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. 40K by opening day. We're trying to get there. And you can sign up. You can subscribe for free. And we have this little QR code in the top right corner that will take you right to where you need to be to subscribe. Let's take that break, and we'll be back right after this.
This isn't just combat. It's cinema. The new home of UFC, Paramount Plus.
Welcome back in Fantasy Baseball. Today we're talking outfield tiers for 2026. And let's get into the elite tier. And that includes Fernando Tatis Jr., Jackson Chourio, Pete Crow Armstrong, and James Wood. Also Yordan Alvarez here. Probably has Outfield on Yahoo. Again, I don't know that.
I just checked, and it does say Outfield, but I don't know if that's a leftover from last year or not.
I'm pretty sure that if you played like 2 or 3 games in the out, you probably have that.
He owns an outfield glove. I think that's how the eligibility is determined.
Yes. On CBS, Alvarez is util only, but on Yahoo does have that outfield eligibility. ADP for this group, Tatis is at 13.9, Churio at 21, PCA at 32, James Wood at 31, and Alvarez right at 40. So, Scott, I have to ask, why isn't Tatis in the previous tier, huh? Explain yourself.
I think I've come to the conclusion that Fernando Tatis is not a 30-homer guy. Every year, he impacts the ball well enough to be. Of course, he was a few years ago at the height of his career. And he impacts the ball well enough to be a 30-homer guy. But now that I've become familiar with pull air rate and it's much easier to see for every player, I can see why Fernando Tatis keeps coming up short of his expected stats. And that's just because he doesn't angle the ball optimally off the bat. And I don't see why it would change at this point. So I think he's very good, but I think he is more good in a second round sort of way than a first round sort of way. I'll say also, like, I am very uncomfortable with this tier because Fernando Tatis and Jackson Churio, to me, are very safe second round type of players. And Pete Crow Armstrong and James Wood are very risky third round type of players. And so I don't like the idea of having them in the same tier, but I don't think there is... I don't like either of them in the higher tier, and I don't like any of them in the higher tier, and I don't like any of them in the lower tier. I kind of wish I could have 2 separate tiers of 2. But a tier of 4 is already so small in a position as big as the outfield. Yeah. So I think I'm just going to live in the discomfort of having them sorted the way I do.
I will also say if Yordan Alvarez remains a 4th round pick in a 12-team league, I'm just going to draft Yordan Alvarez everywhere. And I have said I want to diversify my teams more and not be as exposed to a single player blowing up all my teams, but Yordan Alvarez is... There are not many players who could hit 300 and hit 40 homers in the same season. I think Yordan Alvarez is one of those guys. And I kind of just think that's what he's going to do as long as he avoids the freak injuries, which last year it was a fractured hand that got misdiagnosed. And then
Houston Astros, by the way.
Yeah. And then he sprained his ankle crossing home plate, which
he was running across home plate and his ankle just like turned on the plate.
He's not the first player that has happened to. Scott, the Royals first baseman way back in the day who like broke his leg on home plate.
Kendry Morales?
Kendrys Morales, yes. But like that was a while ago. You generally don't expect players to hurt themselves crossing home plate very often. I know he has a long injury history. He's a very large human.
He has chronic knee issues.
But the knees haven't really been a problem the last 2 years. He missed like a week in 2024, but the knees have not been.
Though. You always hear about it like,
But
I will just say this. The thing that I always say is, if the only thing that you need to go right is he stays healthy, that's a player I'm going to buy. Especially if it's at a very discounted price like it is with Yordan Alvarez. Because Byron Buxton couldn't stay healthy until he did. There's going to be a season where Yordan Alvarez plays 150 games and just puts up monster numbers.
I mean, 2 years ago, he played 147.
Yeah.
He's 3 out of the last 5 years, Alvarez has played at least 135 games.
That is a steal in the 4th round, if you get that.
Yeah, I'm happy to take him.
His ADP last season, just for reference, was 16.
Yeah.
So.
I do think it is a different, just because I was making a similar case for Kyle Tucker, how the fluky nature of his injuries, how unlikely they were to happen again. I do think Alvarez is a legitimate injury-prone player.
I think that's fair. He's very, very large.
Yeah, and has some health issues that are never going to go away. And even if the knees itself don't bother him, the favoring of the knees could lead to other injuries. Having said that, this is a guy who pretty much ever since he was promoted, we've been drafting as a second rounder, maybe even a first rounder. And skill wise, nothing has changed here. I agree. He will hit 300 and deliver a 40 homer pace. Yeah. He's never actually hit 40 homers, but he's always missed some amount of time. And you can take that to the bank. It's just, you got to be a little bit fearful of another scenario where he plays only 50 or 60 games.
But I think that's baked in at the price.
Yeah.
He's a big player for me, depending on what size of league you play in. 12-team points league, I'm all over Alvarez as a third-round pick. 12-team roto, I think I'm a little bit more cautious about it, but I think I could still get behind it. Anything deeper than that, like 15-team roto, it's just like the replacement value is going to be so bad if he's in his time. So maybe you push him down a little bit. In
no caution here. I'm drafting him everywhere.
10 or 12-team leagues.
That is the one. That is legitimately the one guy. If I leave every single draft with Yordan Alvarez, I'm happy with it.
And now, fast forward to us doing the episode of the players we drafted the most. Chris is like, "Hey, I only have one share of your now."
What's going to happen? Well, because I'm stupidly saying it out loud in front of a bunch of people I'll be drafting with. Don't listen to me.
Completely agree with you, Scott, by the way, on PCA and James Wood. I think I ranked them as late third-round picks, but I just never feel like I'm the person to press draft on them so far in the drafts that I've done. And it just, again, it makes me a little nervous.
It's terrifying.
Those two, based on the way that their seasons ended. So I think they're both extremely talented players, but I think they're flawed as well. And so I think I need to see more before I'm using a third-round pick on either of those guys, PCA and James Wood. Let's get into the near elite tier. Buckle up. We have 11 names in this one, and that includes Byron Buxton, Wyatt Langford, Christian Yelich, who's util only, George Springer, Cody Bellinger, Brent Rooker, Randy Rosarena, Riley Green, Seiya Suzuki, Jarren Duran, and Roman Anthony. This ADP range, this group ADP ranges from 48 with Langford down to 125 at Yelich. If we exclude him because he's, again, util only, then this would end with George Springer at 94. So basically 50 to 100 is where this group is being drafted. And Scott, these feel more like second outfielders on your fantasy team, but you just might not have the opportunity to grab the other names we spoke about, right? Those are all first or second round picks. And if you're nervous about James Wood and PCA, you might not want to use your third round pick on those guys. And then boom, next thing you know, it's like round 4, 5, and 6, and you might wind up with one of these as your outfielder one.
So we talked about this range of outfielders recently, and really you could kind of put the next two tiers in this same category of outfilders that you're just not going to be that thrilled to draft for the most part. I'm sure we can all pick out favorites here. But for the most part, you feel it's doubtful that they're going to really exceed their draft position, and there's a fair amount of risk with most of them too. And so you kind of just want to say, "Oh, I'll keep waiting in the outfield." But to your point, it doesn't get better, right? In fact, the drop off, there comes a point, and it's not within the next couple tiers, but everybody needs a lot of outfielders. They go quickly, and there comes a point where the drop off is steep. And if you haven't addressed outfield in a major way at that point, you are going to be hurting. So if you don't have an outfield, if you don't draft a first rounder, let's say, or you don't get Tatis or Churio in round 2, you bypass Crow, Armstrong, and Wood, you're going to have to bite the bullet and take, maybe George Springer, maybe Jarren Duran, maybe you're going to be the one who reaches for Roman Anthony, who I think, this tier is wide enough that his ADP is within this range, but I have him toward the back end of this tier, whereas ADP has him closer to the front end of this tier, Roman Anthony. So it's people reaching for upside to avoid settling for what they view as a regression risk or just a a middling's not entirely fair, but just a medium upside guy.
Mhm.
Yeah. What's the quote? This is the worst here at Outfield, except for all the other ones behind it. It's kind of how I feel about it. It's like I think Outfield has depth, but then I get to every point in the Outfield rankings like, oh, I don't know if I actually love this position. But yeah, there's a lot of good players here. They're just kind of they all have question marks for sure.
They don't feel like outfielder ones, in
Yeah.
the traditional sense, right? It feels like normally the third or fourth round outfielders, we just have more confidence in, or there's just more of them to go around usually. But again, these guys are more like, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh round picks, things like that. In this current draft that I'm doing right now, it's a slow draft, 12-teamer over at the NFBC. I waited until the end of round 5 to grab my first outfielder. You guys tell me if you would be all right with this. I have Roman Anthony, Jaron Duran, Alec Burleson, Ian Happ, Kerry Carpenter, Josh Lowe as my
It's fine enough.
Is it a 15-teamer or a 12-teamer?
12-teamer. It feels okay.
Yeah, it's a little light on.
Yeah, it's missing a third outfielder, I think. Burleson doesn't cut it for me.
Ian Happ?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
You have
Ian Happ is
Happ's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a strength of your team, but I think you could work with it.
I honestly don't think I have a lot of strengths on that team, so pitching is pretty good, but I think maybe I leaned a little bit too hard into pitching on that one.
Looking at this now, I probably need to move Cody Bellinger to the top of this tier. I thought I had already ranked him, presuming he was going back to the Yankees, but maybe I was fence straddling a little bit. Yeah,
I'm okay
now that he's back with the Yankees, such a favorable venue for him.
Yeah,
he's got to go to the top.
I will say, my number 11 outfielder is not in this tier.
Uh-oh.
He's in.
I know who it is.
Yeah. Scott hates that guy.
He hates him. Hates it. He hates the San Diego Padres. Scott has daddy issues.
Ooh.
Wow.
Man.
Another fan base that's going to be in the mentions this year, Scott. Uh-oh.
Padres join the
Unbelievable.
Cubs.
Yeah.
I think he was saying some bad things about Xander Bogaerts the other day.
All the Mets fans are getting mad at me lately because I've been doing the bit. What does it say about player who just signed that the Dodgers didn't sign him? The joke being the Dodgers can get whoever they want, and so if they don't want this guy, well, what does it say about him? And lately, the Mets have been making all the big moves. So Mets fans who don't follow me and aren't in on the joke just think I'm just dismissing all of their big acquisitions.
And it's not the Mets that he hates; it's the Padres.
Yeah.
Really?
Mm.
And the Cubs.
Yeah.
I mean, we know that.
Scott, you should turn on this this feature on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Where you only see the mentions from people that follow you. It's a very cool feature, and I have.
Scott, you already got Greg Maddux. You don't have to spike the football on the Cubs.
Yeah, Derek Lee.
Yeah, he didn't.
We had him for a hot minute.
Oh, he was on the Braves. You're right.
Yep. Let's move on
Smathers.
to the next best things tier. That includes Jose Altuve, Michael Harris, Jackson Merrill, Tyler Soderstrom, and O'Neal Cruz. Both Harris and Cruz, both one tier lower in head-to-head points leagues.
That might be generous.
Cruz strikes out quite a bit. Michael Harris barely walks. Michael Harris's OBP last season was 268.
I think Michael Harris had 9 more walks than I did last season.
That is insane. So the name that Chris was referring to earlier is Jackson Merrill, who you have as your 11th ranked outfielder. Scott has in this tier and not the previous one. I mean, we spoke about it last week, but Scott, would you like to rehash why you dislike Jackson Merrill so much?
I'm just not confident that I really know who he is. It's not. He was a big prospect prior to his rookie season, but he was the sort of prospect where you're just kind of trusting in the scouting reports because
he wasn't hugely productive.
Yeah, and then he gets to the majors and he's hugely productive right away. So it's like, oh, okay, look, man, everybody knew what they were talking about. Great. And then he follows it up with the season he had last year, where I know he was dealing with injury for a part of the season, but you dig deeper in the numbers to see if that's really what it's about. And I can't conclusively say that. He stole one base. And it's not like he stole 20 his rookie season. He stole 14, 16, something like that. So But after stealing one, it's hard to say you can count on him for anything in that category. So take steals off the table for Jackson Merrill. So how good is he as a hitter? Well, he has a good hit tool, but he is not a disciplined player at all. And one of my long-standing takes about that, something that's served me very well in identifying potential busts over the years, is against major league pitchers, if you're not a disciplined enough hitter, like they know how to take advantage of that in a way minor league pitchers don't. You give them enough time, they'll figure it out. His exit velocities are pretty middling. His pull air rate is in the blue. I think he could be good still. I just am not willing to assume it to the point of taking him as the 11th outfielder, or I think ADP has him as the 16th outfielder. I want to safeguard against the possibility that last year wasn't just about injury. It was about him performing over his head as a rookie, catching the league by surprise, just getting his 90th percentile outcome, whatever. Because I think there's enough evidence within the data to suggest that's the case.
So I can't disagree with anything you just said. The only thing I would point out about the steals is that he did have 2 leg injuries last year, and I think that could be a very easy reason for why he didn't run. I think it was a hamstring and an ankle that he dealt with.
It was a hamstring early, right?
It could be.
Yeah.
I don't know how I can know that. There's not enough of a track record here.
That's the part of his production I'm least confident in. I'm very confident Jackson Merrill is going to be a very good source of batting average. I think he's going to hit 25-ish home runs with a lot of room to grow because he is only 22 years old. For me, it's just a bet on a guy we thought was a top 20 player a year ago. And now he's a top 60 player or 70 player in ADP. Where's he going?
Mm-hmm. He's right around 70.
Yeah, like that's just, for me, it's I will bet that we were more right last year than we were wrong than this year in terms of the pricing. Because if I'm wrong and he's just the 80th best player in fantasy, I can live with that. I think the floor is still pretty high.
Yeah, and I want to stress that I'm open to that possibility.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know. I just don't know because there's been no established track record. There was 1 year where he was very good. And really, as a professional, that's the only year where he was very good. And so it could be all injury and he could bounce back and it could be great. It's just at what point am I willing to make that same wager you are, that he's closer to being the guy 2 years ago than last year. And for me, it's a little lower than consensus.
Just as a reference point, Jackson Merrill's ADP last year was 27.9. And again, it's right around 70. I guess you can, if you just want to make that argument without talking about, the skill of a player and diving in, Jarren Duran's ADP last year was 22.3, and he's actually going a little bit later than Jackson Merrill. He's going.
Yeah, I mean, the big distinction there is
72.
23 years old versus 29 years old,
Let me ask you this, because you guys were just railing against Michael Harris, and I think for good reason. He has that same flaw that I pointed out for Jackson Merrill, in that he hardly walks at all, and it was especially bad last year, Michael Harris, and maybe major leaguers caught up to that and were able to exploit that weakness unlike they ever had before. But in theory, Michael Harris and Jackson Harris, Michael Harris and
Jackson Merrill.
Jackson Merrill, thank you. Michael Harris and Jackson Merrill, in theory, are the same from a 5x5 perspective. Batting average standouts with good but not great power, who will contribute some steals. They're the same. And Michael Harris has a history of doing it several times over.
Yeah, I think the big distinction for me would be lineup spot.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah,
Michael Harris might bat 8th.
Yeah, he's projected to bat 8th, and Merrill's going to bat 3rd or 4th.
Yeah, so I think that just that alone,
it changes the counting stats.
Jackson Merrill might get 10% more plate appearances.
Okay, but every time I brought that up in the past with Michael Harris, everybody was like, "Oh, it'll move up. It'll be fine."
I have Michael Harris ranked ahead of his ADP. I do have Jackson Merrill higher. I think Michael Harris is a great, what if we don't get the bad stretch candidate? I just think Jackson Merrill's struggles last year are more easy to excuse. And maybe that's not fair. Like, I like Michael Harris a lot. Michael Harris is only, I think, he is within 3 months of like every rookie of the year finalist on the NL side last year. He is either no more than 3 months older or in like, I think he's like 5 years younger than Isaac Collins. But like people forget that Michael Harris is still so young. He is 3 months younger than Drake Baldwin, who is like the future of the Atlanta Braves, you know? So like that, I do think Michael Harris is another one like Julio Rodriguez where it's just like, what if he's just hot for 5 months instead of 2? But Jackson Merrill, for me, I think the dip in hitting production, like he was hitting 304 with like an 840 OPS when he had his concussion in mid-June. Then he was dreadful for 2.5 months. Then he was awesome in September. And the thing about concussions, and this is speculative for sure, but with concussions, you can be cleared to play without actually being fine because they can slow
Anthony
you.
Rizzo.
Yeah, Anthony Rizzo. I mean, they ruined Joe Mauer's career, Justin Morneau's career. Like a lot of guys have had their careers ruined by concussions. So I just kind of give him a pass for the bad 2.5 months that he had. This is motivated reasoning. I will admit that. Like you can make a case for any of these guys. For me, it's just Jackson Merrill's struggles have a better explanation than Michael Harris because Michael Harris is just sometimes Michael Harris just goes 2 months where he can't hit at all, and it's happened 3 years in a row now. You know,
and yet he has the track record. So my point is just Michael Harris and Jackson Merrill. They rate similarly as players. They're coming off disappointing seasons. Maybe Merrill has the higher ceiling, but Harris has the more established track record. I don't know why I'd separate those two guys in my rankings. They sound way too similar.
Sure.
I also think that yes, Harris has the track record, but I mean, the past 2 years in particular, 722 and 678 OPS, like his OPS since joining the league, 853, 808, 722, 678. Like that's
mostly OBP.
Very clear trend for him. Like the underlying data, he still hits the ball hard. You wish he put it in the air more, but the expected stats, like he underperformed last season. So, I mean, he should bounce back. And just based on where he went last year, his ADP was around 40. Now you're getting him around pick 100. It's just, if you want to buy the dip, Michael Harris is a totally fine name to do that with.
And that OPS on both. And that OPS thing you pointed out with Harris, which I said is mostly OBP, that's why he's a tier lower in points leagues. There is separation between Harris and Merrill and points leagues.
Honestly, he might need to be like 2 tiers lower in points league. He's a really, and O'Neal Cruz, three outfielder points league. Is that guy even worth drafting? He walks a decent amount, but I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, the CBS points league formula, 2 points per steal.
I guess, yeah.
Let me see if I can find
it. I think in ESPN, you lose a full point for strikeouts.
Yeah, I think in ESPN, O'Neal Cruz is actually like a non-entity.
That's the thing about points leagues is like every platform has its own setup. And it makes a huge difference. CBS, half a point for strikeouts for hitters, 2 points for steals. You get in a points league where it's a full -1 for strikeouts and just just 1 point for steals. It totally changes the evaluation of the entire player pool.
I haven't looked at it, but I would guess O'Neal Cruz is not a viable option in a ESPN points league.
Probably not.
No, and that's why when you see ESPN ADP come out, it's so wonky. It's because I believe their default is just their points league, and it's -1 for a strikeout, and it's only 1 point for a steal. And
Luis Arias has been a very good player in ESPN points leagues in a way that's not true in other formats.
Like Scott said, just completely changes the player pool. So keep that in mind. Know your scoring. That's one of the basic principles of playing fantasy. Let's take our final break. When we return, some quick news and notes back into the outfield tiers right after this.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
Welcome back in Fantasy Baseball today. A quick look at the news and notes. Not too much going on. I didn't miss any trades, right? There's nothing crazy that has happened. Hopefully not.
Oh, wait.
You're just gonna It's going to keep getting me, huh?
Always going to be funny.
Twins signed Taylor Rogers to a 1-year deal. He's coming home. He was drafted by this team, spent the first 6 seasons of his career there, and he was okay last year. 3.38 ERA, 1.38 WHIP, over a strikeout per inning. The walks have been rising. He has 83 career saves on a team where there was no clear closer. Scott, do you think Taylor Rogers gets the first shot here in Minnesota?
Maybe. I mean, Rocco Baldelli is gone now. Derek Shelton is there. Derek Shelton's a little more conventional of a bullpen usage guy, less likely to go the committee route. I think Cole Sands might be better than Taylor Rogers, but it's not like he's an obvious closer candidate. He didn't get the first shot down the stretch last season after they moved on from Yohan Duran. So I don't know. I'd probably lean Sands, but Rogers is in the discussion with the lack of a clear front runner. I got to say, though, what does it say about Taylor Rogers that the Dodgers didn't sign him?
The Twin Cities are going to be after you.
It's a good bit. It's a good bit, right?
They say Minnesota nice, but that means they're mean.
Let's talk about the Angels. They are bringing back Yohan Moncada on a 1-year, $4 million deal. What does it say about – no, I'm not going to do it. Moncada is 30 years old. He doesn't seem like he has much left. Chris, does this matter at all?
Just to climb on my hobby horse for a second, there are a lot of switch hitters who probably shouldn't be. And Yohan Moncada is like at the top of that list. For his career, he has a 332 WOBA against righties and a 283 against lefties. That is a massive difference. And he still showed some signs against righties last year. He just can't stay healthy and can't hit lefties. So he probably doesn't matter for fantasy. But what could have been Yohan Moncada if he could stay healthy and not try to hit right-handed, because he can't do it.
He hit 12 homers in 84 games last season. This probably doesn't matter, but 14% barrel rate, that was a career high. 26% pulled air rate, also a career high. So, I mean, it did something that looks like it should have tapped into more power, but it didn't really. I mean, 12 homers over 84 games. There's just not too much going on there. The updated Angels lineup via roster resource: Zach Neto, Nolan Shanuel, Mike Trout, Yohan Moncada, Joe Adell, Josh Lowe, Jorge Soler, Logan O'Hoppe, and maybe Christian Moore, maybe Vaughn Grissom, who knows. Ivan Herrera was cleared to begin a throwing program earlier in January and is expected to begin hitting and defensive drills this week. Herrera underwent surgery in November to remove bone spurs from his right elbow, but it sounds like he will. We have our Cardinals team preview coming out on Monday. The gentleman I spoke to, Jeff Jones, who covers the team, said he expects Herrera to actually catch quite a bit early on in the season, which is music to our ears.
Exactly what we want to hear. I want to get – let's have him start behind the plate the first 5 games of the season.
Yeah.
DH the rest of the way. Well, you get with 15 the rest of the way.
Maybe like the first 10 games of the season for, like NFBC.
Yeah, NFBC, yeah.
But in CBS, we'll only need 5, so that's good.
And his price is already spiking in NFBC leagues. I saw recently, I think in January, he's up to like 160, I think, in ADP is what I saw, which that's a lot for a util-only player. Granted, a util-only player that we expect to be, he's 151.
Higher, I was about to say higher.
Yeah, 151 in the month of January. And look, if he gets catcher eligibility, I'd rank him even higher than that. I think Ivan Herrera is not a significantly worse hitter than Ben Rice. You give me 100 pick discounts between those guys, I already don't like Ben Rice's price, but that just makes it look even worse.
If he had catcher eligibility already, Ivan Herrera, I think he would probably be going around.
I think he's a top 100 pick easy.
Augustine Ramirez and Drake Baldwin, and those guys are going 75 to 80.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I think that's the right tier for him at catcher, and probably would deserve to go. Do I actually tier him that way? He probably deserved to go ahead of those guys. I don't have my catcher tiers available.
I genuinely think if you were ranking every catcher just as a hitter, I don't think he's any worse than 5.
No.
Cal Raleigh, William Contreras.
Yeah.
I think he's right there with Ben Rice, Shea Langoliers.
Maybe Ben Rice ahead of him.
Yeah.
It's close. Jake Berger is fully recovered from left wrist surgery and has been working in the batting cage on regaining his pull side power. I mean, he's a name that has been left for dead as well. So if he's healthy, we could see a bounce back, like 25 homer season out of Jake Berger this year. Let's get back into the outfield tiers and the fallback options. 13 names in this tier. We have Kyle Stowers, Brandon Nimmo, Andy Pajes, Joe Adell, Lawrence Butler, Teoscar Hernandez, Jacob Marcy, Taylor Ward, Luis Robert, Jurickson Profar, Ian Happ, Mike Trout, and Chandler Simpson. Simpson is one tier lower in head-to-head points leagues. Obviously, he's huge stolen bases and batting average helps in roto and category leagues. These are definitively outfielders 2 and 3. I mean, probably more 3, but I mean, he's definitely moved past like the possible outfield 1 range, maybe even 2.
They're fallback options.
Yeah. The ADP range on this group starts with Joe Adell at 119, which kind of surprises me. And
yeah, it feels a little high.
Down to Mike Trout at 191. How the mighty have fallen. But yeah, I expect to be in on Joe Adell this year. I was very excited about what he did last season, all the home runs. The expected stats were great too, improvements in plate discipline, but everyone's thinking the same thing, and now he's inside the top 120. So I always want to draft him, but I feel like I can't pull the trigger that early.
And I think he's a bust this year. I'm going to have Busts 1.0 coming out on Friday, and I did not include Joe Adell, partially because I did not want to have to explain why I think he's the bust. I don't believe in him. I understand he underperformed his expected stats last year, but I think the overall skill set is just too precarious. It relies on him. It relies on contact gains that I don't necessarily believe in, and here I am. I didn't want to have to explain it, and now I'm trying to explain it, and I'm coming up short. I just don't believe in Joe Adell. Okay.
Yeah, I was just saying, let's just move on. Chris, who are you most likely to target from this tier? Because it is an interesting one.
Boy, I don't like a lot of guys in this tier.
Yeah.
Joe Adell, by the way, I will just point out, 17% barrel rate last year, 96th percentile. That's beat 99th percentile. I don't know. I might be talking myself into it.
Kyle Stowers and Joe Adell are like the Spider-Man meme for me, and they're very similar priced.
Is a 19% barrel rate unless you're Aaron Judge? Or
17%, yeah.
Okay. It's very high. It's hard for anyone, particularly with Adele's history of not being very on target with the bat, to sustain a barrel rate that high. And so I think, if anything, that just it explains why his expected stats are so high, but also why I don't think he can sustain his expected stats, and what it means for the actual stats. We'll see. But anyway, we're moving on from Adell. What do you got, Chris?
I think Joe Adell might just be Jorge Soler with everything that comes with, including if we get like a 45 homer season out of Joe Adell, I'm not going to be shocked.
He wasn't that far off last year.
But if we get a season where he hits like 210 with 22 homers, not going to be shocked by that either. I like Kyle Stowers.
37. Yeah, he wasn't that far off last year.
I like Kyle Stowers and Joe Adell probably best out of this group, just because they are breakouts whose breakout is not quite going to cost you the face value. Like, they were better than their cost last year, so there's a little bit of room for regression for both of them. But on the whole, like, Taylor Ward is probably fine. I don't think he's going to be as good as he was last year, but very good, cheap source of RBI. He won't kill you. I really don't like this range. But then I look at the next range, and I don't like that range either. So
fallback options you're not supposed to love. I would say that my favorite, so this fallback options tier is kind of a mishmash of volatile, high upside guys, which to me would include Adell, but also Lawrence Butler and Luis Robert and Mike Trout, I guess you could put in that category. Volatile, high upside guys, and then like super safe, underrated guys, which to me is Brandon Nimmo,
Taylor Ward.
You could put Taylor Ward in there, but I think his most likely outcome is lower than like a Nimmo or maybe even like a Jurickson Profar, certainly an Ian Happ. But yeah, let's call those the safe guys: Nimmo, Taylor Ward, Jurickson Profar, Ian Happ. Within this tier, I gravitate more toward those guys because I think, with the exception of Ward, they're just undervalued to begin with. Again, that's Nimmo, Profar, and Ian Happ. And I would say especially Nimmo and Happ most of all. Profar is still a little bit unsure what kind of hitter he is because of the way last year played out for him. There were some encouraging signs, but there are also some discouraging signs, and he didn't get a full season because of the PED suspension. So Profar is a little riskier, but Nimmo and Happ, like if I'm looking for a third outfielder and either of them is out there in this tier, I am gravitating toward them. And I think just the way ADP works, I am most likely to get them from this tier.
Especially in points leagues too. I mean, those guys are super undervalued in that format. Nimmo and Profar and Happ, I mean, they're good OBP sources, and they are going to hit near the top of their respective lineups, so they'll get a bunch of plate appearances. So definitely like those names in points leagues. Taylor Ward, I mean, I know it's a change of scenery going to Baltimore. He kind of feels like a slightly discounted version of Joe Adell and Stowers. I mean, I guess he's not as like sexy or exciting because he's not like, new to the scene. He wasn't a big prospect or anything like that, but I mean, he just hit a bunch of home runs, close to 40, and you're getting him like 30 or 40 picks later than those guys. So I actually don't mind Taylor Ward. I like Teoscar Hernandez. I mean, we're getting him 75 picks later than last year. I understand like he was disappointing, but in that Dodgers lineup, like getting exposure to that Dodgers lineup around pick 130 when he's probably going to hit 25-ish home runs and good counting stats and like maybe 8 to 10 steals. It's not exciting, but I like buying the dip on Teoscar Hernandez.
I will say, relative to price, I think I like Teoscar better than Andy Pages, who I just do not have very much faith in at all as a hitter.
There's bust potential there for sure. Yeah,
anytime you can spend like a 10th round pick on a guy who was benched for the World Series, I think you got to do it.
And he made the catch of the century.
And on that, oh god.
I think there's bust potential for Hernandez too.
Sure, yeah.
Given that he's 33, he hit 25 homers last year, which was a drop off from 33 the previous year. 9 of those 25 came in March/April, the first month, and then
it was pretty bad after that.
It was pretty ugly after that,
including in the playoffs, right?
Pretty sure he was playing through an injury, wasn't he?
I do want to.
There's a nagging thing all season with him.
Well. But
even
he's 33,
so, I mean,
right?
33 with a skill set that I don't feel like is going to age well. So we may have seen the start of the drop off for Teoscar Hernandez. I don't think the price is bad. I think the risk is worth it at this point, but that's another reason why I might take like an Ian Happ instead.
One guy I want to highlight here is Chandler Simpson, because I actually think as an offensive player, I know who he is. And who he is guy's probably going to hit 290, 300. Probably, if you cap it, if you rate it out by playing time, I think he's probably the best base stealer in baseball. I think you could get a decent amount of runs from him. I actually just think that the question is defense with him. Like, if you could guarantee me Chandler Simpson is just a league average corner outfielder, I might draft him with a 10th round pick. Yeah. But I think there is real risk that, man, like, is there a chance Chandler Simpson's just not on the team on opening day?
Yeah.
I think there's a real chance.
I don't think the front office likes him that much, to be honest.
I think it's just the defense. I think they'd be fine with the skill set if he was it. Like, he's not a great hitter because there's just no power and he's not going to walk much. But if he could be an impactful defender, I think they'd love him. But the fact that he's a bad defensive corner outfielder, it might be untenable.
I haven't seen any quotes supporting this, but just kind of reading between roster decisions and lineup decision, I sense Kevin Cash values what Chandler Simpson brings to the table more than the front office does. And so that tension puts a lot of pressure on Simpson's bat. But speaking in terms of tiers and how Simpson fits there, I kind of think he's removed from tiers Chandler Simpson.
It's just what you need. If you need steals.
Yeah, it's steals and batting average. Like I think most roto builds, you don't need to bother with Chandler Simpson. But if you have that certain roto build where at this point in the draft, man, I really need steals. Man, I really need batting average. I got plenty of power. Well, okay, Chandler Simpson's the perfect pick. So he's either not a good pick or he's the perfect pick.
Yeah, you took Aaron Judge and Cal Raleigh with your first 2 picks. Probably need to make sure you circle Chandler Simpson for a 12th round pick or whatever.
But yeah, you need to pull him off the board, because once you start your draft with those guys, you almost need Chandler Simpson. And if you miss out on him, where do you go from there, right? I mean, you can win a league like punting a category, but obviously you'd rather not do that. There is no league where I would draft Chandler Simpson this season. It just is not going to happen. If I got to that point in the draft and I missed steals that badly, then oh well, that's on me. Like, I messed up my draft. The way that I draft is I got to get power and speed early on as much as I possibly could. I don't want to depend on a player like him, especially when there's risk that he could lose his job. And if that's the guy you're depending on to give you all your steals, and he's out of a job, then you're not getting any steals.
And we've done this with Estuary Ruiz, who is a very good comp for Chandler Simpson as a guy who doesn't bring a lot to the table offensively and is not a good defender. I will say we got to pay close attention to what they're saying in spring training. I think that's the biggest thing. If they're still publicly talking about his defense in a negative way, I think you got to stay away from Chandler Simpson. And they've acquired a lot of outfielders this offseason.
And he's only 25 years old. He could improve, but last season, 11th percentile in outs above average, playing a corner outfield spot. And so, he's originally a middle infielder. He had to transition to outfield. This isn't natural for him. He could get better, but we need to see him get better. And we have
get better very quickly.
Let's get into the last resorts tier. There are 18 names. Do I want to put people through me reading off 18 names?
Absolutely.
Is what I'm deciding right now. All right, I'll do it. Trent Grisham, Noelvi Marte, Dalton Varsho, Ramon Laureano, Brian Reynolds, Cedon Rafaela, Brenton Doyle, Stephen Kwan, Sal Frelick, Dylan Cruz, Jason Dominguez, Alec Burleson, Willier Abreu, Elliot Ramos, Kerry Carpenter, Anthony Santander, Addison Barger, and Giancarlo Stanton. The ADP on this group ranges from Noelvi Marte at 133 down to Giancarlo Stanton at 251. So about 120 picks. Obviously,
I don't think Barger and Stanton should be in this tier. I think I moved them up and was debating moving Barger up at third base and decided not to. So let's leave Barger and Stanton out. It ends at Anthony Santander.
Well, there was one name that stood out while I was reading it, and it was Jason Dominguez, Scott. And now that Bellinger is back, I kind of feel like he's out of a job, right? So maybe he should be in a lower tier.
I don't know. I don't know.
Stanton could very easily get hurt before opening day.
Stanton could get hurt.
Dominguez
Grisham could turn into a pumpkin. Ben Rice. I mean, sadly, he could not be the full-time player we're expecting him to be.
That is impossible, Scott. He's going to be amazing.
You know what I want to point out? Let's just do. You guys want some baseless speculation? Just absolutely nothing to it.
Sure.
Cameron Maben earlier today tweeted, "Man, just got some inside info on a major, all caps, major player quietly working on a position change. If this sticks, it could reshape the entire roster. I'm extremely curious how the team adjusts around it. This one could get interesting." You think Giancarlo Stanton bought a first baseman? Come on, right? That's the kind of thing that would just make the Yankees roster make a lot more sense.
Or even Judge, but
if you could throw, one of those guys at first base, which they probably should.
If Stanton does one split,
that's
first base, he's out for the season.
That's fair.
Like, there's no way.
That's nothing.
But it always kind of felt like it would make sense for Judge eventually.
Thank you for that nothing tangent.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Great.
That's what I bring to the table. No, I do. You know who secretly might be my favorite player in this range, in this tier?
It's not a secret anymore.
I really like what Dalton Varsho did last year.
Me too.
Varsho, I don't think Dalton Varsho gets enough credit for what an absolute freak he is. Like, you remember that dude was a catcher as a prospect and then just started playing center field and was immediately like the best center fielder in baseball? Yeah. Well, last year he kind of did the same thing where he had always been one of these like weak contact lift and pull hitters who just had to sell out to the pull side to hit for any power whatsoever. Well, last season he started hitting the ball really hard, or at least a lot harder than he had before. Hard hit rate was 40%, highest of his career, 89.9 mile per hour average exit velocity, 2 miles an hour harder than it's ever been. Barrel rate was like twice what it was for most of his career before last season. Dalton Varsho might just be like a legit plus power hitter now. And I think there's going to be some batting average concerns, but he might be a 30 homer guy. He hit 21 or 20 in 71 games last year.
His 162 game pace last year was 46 home runs. And he had the exit velocities to support it, as you point out. I wrote about Dalton Varsho in my Breakouts 1.0, which came out early last week. John Schneider, the Blue Jays manager, compared the mechanical change that unlocked Dalton Varsho's power to the mechanical change that very famously unlocked Jose Bautista's power. One of the most famous mechanical changes of all time. And it seems like there's a lot of excitement for him with the Blue Jays. I think if not for his time lost to injury and some of the in and out of the lineup stuff that was related to that, Varsho would be a much bigger deal in fantasy than he is. So I'm with you on that. I'm going to have to. Where do I actually have Varsho within this tier? Oh, he's third in the tier, but I probably need. I maybe even need to move him up to the prior tier, because that's the more I dig into it, the more I like Dalton Varsho, which is why I have the breakouts. Another name in this tier that I want to highlight is Ramon Laureano, because
similar thing, yeah.
I think I have priced him appropriately here, given that it kind of unexpectedly became what he became last year, or really it was the second half prior. He turned into this must-start fantasy player. Nobody really saw it coming, but he's sustained it for a year and a half now. He's sustained it across 3 different organizations. And I don't know. I don't know why the discount for him is so steep. I feel like my own ranking where we list him here, that's pretty discounted for what Ramon Laureano's actually been. But ADP, he's the 55th outfielder off the board on average, behind Jordan Beck, behind Dalen Lyle.
Yeah.
Behind
Dalen Lyle's pretty good.
Well, maybe. he had a pretty good partial season as an older non-prospect first appearing in the majors, but yeah, I would still rather have Ramon Laureano.
I did just want to highlight some just pure bounce back candidates from where they were going last year. Brian Reynolds is going over 100 picks later than he was last season, and his first half was terrible, but the expected stats were still pretty good. Strikeout rate was rising, but I still feel like he's mostly the same player he's always been, Brian Reynolds.
Yeah, I want to move him up too.
Anthony Santander is another one too. I mean, I've just been all over this all off season. I know completely wrecked by injury last season. It was a shoulder, it was a back. John Schneider talked earlier this offseason and said, we have a lot of faith and confidence in Tony contributing and being a big player for them this season. And he really just kind of fits what they want to do. He makes contact. He obviously can hit for power. And Santander is going like 125 picks later than he was going last season too. So I just kind of like blindly buying the dip on both of those guys, Brian Reynolds and Santander.
I don't disagree, especially with Reynolds. I don't think Reynolds actually changed as a player. I just think we saw his bottom of the barrel outcome. Just part of year-to-year variance that happens in baseball, and he will bounce back with typical Brian Reynolds numbers next year. Obviously, I don't think you need to rank him like that, but with the discount, it's a pretty steep discount, and my feelings about who Brian Reynolds as a player haven't really changed that much.
Yeah.
I do want to just highlight for Ramon Laureano to put some context. Since the middle of June of 2024, he ranks 20th among all hitters in WRC+. He is ahead of Freddie Freeman, tied with Freddie Freeman, ahead of Eugenio Suarez, Fernando Tatis, Rafael Devers, Manny Machado, Matt Olson, Gunnar Henderson. That's really impressive.
How is that the 55th outfielder drafted?
Yeah, it's only 714 plate appearances, but still, like, if it's real at all, and it's not like he's a part-time player, he should be an everyday player.
That's more than a full season's worth of plate appearances.
And again, across 3 teams, which to me makes it more viable.
Yeah, 3 hitting environments. Yeah.
Yeah. Granted, I think he was the worst with the most recent of those teams, San Diego, which makes sense, and that's where he remains, San Diego. But and I wouldn't say that he actually is the 20th best hitter. Like, I don't think he's going to remain that high just because
he doesn't need to
been for the past 720. Yeah, he's being drafted so far below that to me it's just I don't want to call him a sleeper, but I think he's clearly among the most underdrafted players, Ramon Laureano.
I think it would be totally fine too.
I think he's the classic definition of a sleeper. Yeah.
Yeah, I think 100%.
Like if he regresses from the 20th, if he regresses from the 20th best hitter in this range to the 60th, still a good pick.
Yeah.
I guess you're right. I mean, people are sleeping on him. I get it in my head that a sleeper has to get better, and Ramon Laureano's not going to get better. But no, it's just people are sleeping.
No, that's what a breakout is. Breakouts get better.
Right.
Yeah, for me, Scott, I mean, sleepers, whenever I write the article, it's like, oh, always synonymous with undervalued. I just look at, all right, who can provide profit potential, and that's usually who I choose as a sleeper. Last thing I wanted to mention here is Sal Frelick. I feel like he's very similar skill set to Stephen Kwan, and he's going 30 or 40 picks later. I feel like I do this for a lot. Like, oh, he's the same player that you're getting 40 picks later. But this was the player Frelick was always supposed to become. Yep. It's pretty good batting average and, 20-ish steals and maybe 10 home runs, and there's just the drafts I've done so far. Whenever I get to this point in the draft, I feel like maybe I could use a little bit more batting average and a little bit more steals, and Sal Frelick always kind of fits that like a glove. So I kind of like him.
Brewers have a type. They love a short king.
Yes,
and I agree with your Stephen Kwan comp. I think Kwan's playing time is a little safer, but they're back to back in my rankings. They're not 30 spots apart.
And then the leftovers tier has way too many names. I didn't even try to count because there's like probably 30 plus names in this tier. So if you want to see all those names, you can check out Scott's tiers on the website next week, or just look at his outfield rankings, and you can just see anywhere from Adolis Garcia down is in the leftovers tier. So there you go. We are going to wrap there for Scott and Chris. I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning into Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. And we will be back again next week, maybe sooner. There's a lot going on. Bye-bye.